We are going to answer the many whats that come with when some people look in this direction of what is wellness, what is mindfulness, what does it mean to practice, or is all this just popular hippie bullshit? We have your answers to all of these and more. Welcome back, everybody. Let's do this. Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness. That's right. We're going to go back to the basics today and use this episode to demystify many of the core concepts that might be confusing you when you hear the words mindfulness, wellness, or meditation. So even if you've been a longtime listener of our show, this episode will surprise you and challenge you. And this all came about after a friend of mine was visiting me this weekend. He's a very smart dude. He's actually a very prolific writer in Hollywood. And he was listening to one of our recent episodes with Brett Cotter. And he said, Will, he goes, I really love the show. I love what you guys are doing, but you guys are throwing around some terms and words that I didn't know what you're referring to. And he's like, what if you did an episode where you just really, unpack some of these very basic concepts? And I was like, hey, sounds like a great idea. And here we are. So we're going to keep it simple today, and we're going to work and speak to these core concepts of mindfulness and wellness. We're going to break down what mindfulness is, what it means to practice, what it means, what it was meant by wellness, some common obstacles to adopting this lifestyle, what is emotional intelligence, and more. So welcome back, Jon. It's great to be here. And Jon and I love getting basic about all this stuff. And it's always great to see my boy, Jon, over there in Colorado. So how have you been, Jon?
I've been good, man. Today's been a little bit crazy, a little bit hectic. So I appreciate you doing most of the heavy lifting this morning and today and this week preparing for this show. But yeah, I'm excited to get back to the basics. It's always good to do a little refresher for the audience, but also for ourselves, right? I'm excited to be here. A couple of announcements before we do that. Well, really just one big one. Check out our website. It's just simple, mentalkingmindfulness.com. And if that's too much for you, you can just text the letters MTM to 33777, and that'll show you all the things that we've got going on. By the time this airs, we will have a couple of meditation courses underway, but be on the lookout for future ones too. We've got some stuff coming out on mindful.org. We've got meditation coming out there. We've got newsletters, blogs. You can check out our Substack, but it's all right there on our website. If you just go to mentalkingmindfulness.com or text MTM to 33777. That's all I got for announcements. So let's jump into our opening practice, which, that's part of the show is we're going to explain what practicing means. And the reason it's called the practice is that it takes practice. You're never going to arrive at this area of perfection with mindfulness and meditation. And we'll talk about, the difference between those two things too. But a practice, what we're going to do today, for those of you who have never tuned in before, we bookend the show, beginning of the show and the end of the show with a practice. And all we're doing is just getting into our body, getting into this time, getting into this space. And we're going to do that by simply just doing one focused, intentional breath where we're paying attention. So whatever that looks like for you as far as getting comfortable before we get started, go ahead and take that position, get into that position. I'm standing. I know Will over there is sitting for this episode. If you're sitting, laying down, again, whatever is physically and psychologically safe for you. And then if that includes closing your eyes, then I invite you to do so. Otherwise, just soften your gaze, soften your eyelids, and just bring your attention to your breath to start. And we'll breathe out together, exhaling all our breath, emptying our lungs, emptying, holding empty at the bottom. Notice that feeling of emptiness, nice deep breath in, filling all the way up. Nice extra sip at the top. Hold. And release. And as you release, just notice what that feels like physically, emotionally, and let it go and bring some movement back into your body. And that right there is just a simple one breath focused. Move your shoulders, maybe wiggling your fingers and your toes. Again, just bring yourself into this space, this time. So let's kick it off, man. Let's kick it off with, what is mindfulness? And I'll just kind of lead into this. A lot of what we're going to refer to as mindfulness has been defined by Jon Kabat-Zinn. Jon Kabat-Zinn is essentially, if you look him up, he's kind of known as the father of mindfulness in the West. He started bringing mindfulness to a lot of veterans up in the Boston area, I think at UMass first, and I think he's over at Brown now. But he started bringing mindfulness to veterans, and we'll talk about again what that is here in a second. And he noticed that there was a big decrease, or he didn't notice it, but he proved it, showed it. It's evidence-based that there was a big decrease in stress and anxiety amongst these groups of veterans. And he has founded a specific type of mindfulness called mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. And that's become big here in the West. But as far as the definition, and this is a piece, and you may hear my little girl screaming in the background. Hopefully it's not too loud, but I'm working from home these days. And again, raw, uncut, and unapologetic. So I'm not going to apologize for my little girl, but just be aware of her. And talking about awareness, that's what it is. Mindfulness it's that awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose to the present moment or in the present moment. And here's the key piece: without judgment. Without judgment. A lot of the time, what we find ourselves doing is we find ourselves in a moment. We're stressed out and we start judging ourselves, or we start judging that emotion. We're angry and we start judging ourselves. We judge that emotion. Or we're happy and we're like, this is how things need to stay. And we all know that nothing stays, right? Yeah. So we can enjoy the moment and just be in that moment, or maybe not enjoy it necessarily, but just be in that moment without judgment. So that's real quick, the definition, but you want to unpack that a little bit further, Will?
Well, let's just go down through each one of those particular words, which are really important, and even, I think we're so, I don't think, first of all, I don't think we've ever kind of put all this one in, all what we're going to talk about today in one episode. There's kind of dispersed all over the place. So, right. We're going to have a lot of, check out definitely the show notes. We're going to have a lot of different episodes that if you want to take a deeper dive, you can definitely get into those. But one thing we actually never really have talked about, but always kind of talk about, but never in a particular way, is what it means to be present, right? What does it mean just to be present? And simply being present means being available, open, and just here in the here and now, right? It's the only time it ever is. And if we're not in the here and now, if we're not being present, then we're lost in our thought, either in the past thinking or future thinking. And one way is that Jon Kabat-Zinn and MBSR really helps us to become present. And what a lot of these practices, and we'll get to what some of those practices are, it helps us to get into present moment awareness by either feeling our body, like the body scan is a big part of MBSR, feeling our breath, or just being open and available to sound. And that next piece is really important, because what gets in the way of us being present to the moment is our mind starting to judge everything, right? Or start to pick it apart. And that's what the mind does. And I'm thankful the mind does this, John. It begins to, decipher or, differentiate between different things in the world. And it's very important, because we live in a physical world, and we need to know the different physical attributes of different things, like the difference between like a water and a rock, right? Or, versus, and not being judgmental and not kind of discerning and differentiating the rest of our environment. Because we live in the physical world, which is kind of our human part of the human being. But the other part, which is the more esoteric and the weirder part, and the stuff that kind of people get in the weeds about, and that's why we're doing this episode, is the being part, right? The human being. And the being is really the energy that we are in this physical world, in this human form. So what it really means to be present and to be as much of your being as possible, of the human being, is to just be present and just be here and just be, now oriented instead of like thought oriented. Anything else there?
No, I love it. You're spot on, man. I love that now oriented, right? Present oriented there at the end. Well, I loved it all, but another piece that you've got here, and I really love, is it's like upgrading your entire software system. And
yes, exactly.
Like upgrading brings to mind. So yes, I definitely believe it's like updating your iOS or updating your whatever software system you're using on your computer. But I also like to think of it as defragmenting your hard drive. And I'm definitely dating myself here. But if you guys remember defragmenting your hard drive back in, late 90s or maybe early 2000s, you would get this little graphical user interface that would pop up on your screen, and it would show like the boxes that were kind of all over the place, and it would be moving these boxes into a more accessible spot, and it would clear some of the clutter. And that to me is what mindfulness is. It's helping to clear some of the clutter, tune out some of the noise in our lives. And one misconception or misperception of mindfulness is that it's clearing your mind. It's going to clear your mind, and you're just going to have this blank slate, which is not true at all. You're not going to have that blank slate. Right. You're going to be able to settle your mind. You're going to be able to think differently about things. You're going to be able to process different. You're going to be able to manage things better. But you're not going to clear your mind and end up with this blank slate. But it's definitely like defragmenting your hard drive or updating your software system, and not just your mental side of things, but it really helps it helps everything. Like my body feels better. I feel better in my skin when I practice. So it's upgrading, in a way, it's upgrading your entire software system, but it's also in a way upgrading your hardware. And that's just a really good way of thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, you can think of the defragging as like releasing and letting go of stress, anxiety, overwhelm, and just getting out of those emotional states, which are brought up by, the thinking, right? We talk about the STIA process, right? There's a stimulus in the environment all the time. There's a thought that's going to be associated with that stimulus. And then it's like, hey, like, what mindfulness does, it gives us the opportunity to, instead of just being habitual, this is the big key as far as the upgrade goes and the defragging goes. If, we're trying to get to a place of like, I'm making a choice instead of being habitual. And those habits are just like, again, they're habitual. So we're not even thinking about them. And that's what's going to drive our results. But if we're making choices and we're responding to the environment more intentionally, then we have an opportunity to change our results and begin to change our path forward, if we like. So that's what's really important about mindfulness. It helps us to really get to know the mind. And so much of the mind is all these negative thoughts, and all these negative thoughts create negative emotions, and all of those, and we're going to be emotionally reactive, and therefore we're going to produce and do things that are from that emotionally reactive place, which is not the best place that we can be and work from.
Yeah, so real quick, just unpacking that STIA process, because you went through it kind of fast. For those who are not familiar, this is a process, I think it was actually kind of outlined more specifically by Dr. Seth Hickerson in some of our past episodes, but it's STEA, and that's stimulus. Like the stimulus that we incur every day. It could be from, waking up in the morning and seeing a text message on your phone, to getting cut off by some jerk in traffic, to whatever. The S is stimulus. Then that stimulus is going to drive a thought. So that's the T. And then that thought is going to drive an emotion. And then emotion is going to drive an action. So if you can put a breath or a pause in between that stimulus and your initial thought, that can change the emotion, the associated emotion, and ultimately change the action. So that's STIA for you, for those who have never heard us talk about it in the past. So just wanted to unpack that real quick. But along with that, what, a lot of people are like, so this mindfulness is kind of woo-woo. I don't really believe in it. It's a bunch of, what do you call it, hippie bullshit at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Well, and I thought of that. I thought of it as that way before. I remember when I was really young, my mother used to go to yoga. She still does yoga almost every morning on her own, but and she's 81, just a stud. Both my parents are. But anyhow, I went to a yoga class with her when I was, I don't know, maybe 10 or something. And they did some meditation at the end of this class. I'm a 10-year-old and I'm trying to sit quietly with my with my thoughts and calm my thoughts. And of course, my mind was everywhere. And I was like, what a bunch of weirdos sitting here. and then years later, decades later, I had it reintroduced to me, and I still thought of it as kind of hippie bullshit. And then somebody explained to me, why it works, what it does for you. And that's what I want to discuss really quick is, what are some of the benefits? It can, like we talked about, through the mindfulness based stress reduction. And you know what? I actually don't like that term, mindfulness-based stress reduction, because I actually think it helps you to manage the stress. It doesn't reduce the stress. So in my mind, it's mindfulness-based stress management instead of reduction. But that's critical, is learning how to manage your stress. It helps you to improve your focus, right? I mean, a lot of the time when I was not practicing mindfulness and meditation, I'd be all over the place and I would not even be able to finish a thought. It improves my focus in conversation. It improves my focus at work. So physiologically, what's happening is you can start to shrink the amygdala, which is the part of our brain responsible for the fight, flight, or freeze reaction. And we start to thicken the lining or the communication line between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, which allows us to think more clearly. And then you also thicken the corpus callosum, which is the part of the brain that links the left and right lobes of our brain. And so you can actually start to tap into more creativity, more emotional resilience, emotional intelligence. It can help you to sleep better, which as you sleep better, then you're going to have all sorts of compounding positive effects. But there's a ton of things that mindfulness and I'm going to say that specifically, or meditation, because we'll kind of break down the difference here in a little bit, what they can do for you. Right. I've listed a couple there. Will, anything you want to jump in on?
I think also it's important to note, and this is also very helpful in what mindfulness does. It really helps you become aware, right? Aware of not just your thinking, which is so important because, again, through that STIA process, the thinking drives the rest of that, the emotion and then the action. But I'm also being aware of today I was, for example, I was, I worked from home today. I didn't have to leave today. Just did some work, worked on the show, work on different things. But I can see like how I really just wanted to I need to get this done, and then I have it all blocked off. But things would start getting in the way, and I was aware of things are getting in the way, and I was getting a little hungry. And I was like, "Hey, make some food." So this awareness helped me to just really stay focused by implementing some tools that from my mindfulness experience and from just trying to remain more focused. I'm like, set a time blocker. I'll just set a timer. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this for 20 minutes and do nothing else. I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to get up from the chair until I finish this particular task. Mindfulness also has helped me, John, relax tremendously my anxiety. And it allows me to just be more present in conversations. It helps me to be a better listener, which is such a gift to yourself and anybody you come in contact with. And also as you become more mindful and begin to strip away all these, they call them sankhara, which are old, deep rooted ruts of how you do things. You're changing into new ways of doing things that really work and align with how you want to be and who you want to be and how you want to show up. So that's just been really helpful to me, just to stay relaxed and stay a little bit more calm. And just be present for other people. So that's definitely something, and it's improved your relationships. And also here, the last piece I'll say is it really helps you to get into the most important part of our entire biology, which is our heart. And when you start orienting yourself and making choices from the heart, meaning does this align with me? Is this, does this have a higher purpose? How can I be compassionate in this circumstance? How can I be more empathetic? All the things, all the technology and all the wisdom and the intelligence that is already in the heart, you will help to unlock this. And that's just, people are just going to naturally connect with you a little more deeply because you're from a heart-oriented place instead of just a mind-oriented place.
Right. Yeah, man. I've got 3 young kids, as you well know, Will.
Yeah.
And this past weekend, just last night, as a matter of fact, we went to go see The Wild Robot, which for parents or anyone that has anything to do with kids, I cannot recommend it highly enough. It was a beautiful movie, DreamWorks. Anyway, it's without doing any kind of spoiler alerts or spoilers. The movie is about a robot that gets stranded on an island, and it's wired to help you achieve tasks, and it's looking for somebody that it can help to achieve some type of task. And it comes across after a long search, comes across a gosling, and this gosling is orphaned. And it needs to learn how to eat, it needs to learn how to swim, and it needs to learn how to fly. And in the process of trying to teach this little gosling as a robot how to do all these things, there's this huge emotional side to it. The robot learns to feel with its heart, instead of just its wiring and its programming. Phenomenal movie. I think we should list that as a resource on our website eventually.
All right. Yeah.
But it's a fantastic book too. Anyway, I think that's a big piece, is that it allows you to tap into another side of this thing that we call life. A lot of us go through life every day just thinking and doing, right? And you touched on it before, right? The human being, well, so many of us are human doings and not human beings. And we miss out. Like, if you go through life from A to B, A being birth, B being death, and all you do is achieve goals, which, I'm not against achieving goals. I'm all for it. I'm all for striving. I'm all for having some type of ambition. But if you don't experience some type of emotional connection with somebody or something in your life, you're missing out on, I would say, more than half of life. I think that truly is the key to having some sense of fulfillment and happiness. So I just wanted to bring in and kind of build upon what you talked about, is feeling with your heart rather than just experiencing with your mind.
Yes, exactly.
So let's move from that into, the difference between meditation and mindfulness. And I talk about this quite often in my talks, and I always put up a Venn diagram. And in my eyes, mindfulness is in one circle of the Venn diagram and meditation is in another. Mindfulness, like we've defined, is being okay in the present moment, experiencing what it is you're experiencing, like I'm experiencing my little girl out there yelling right now, but I'm not judging it, right? Without judgment. So that's a way of living. And then in the other circle of the Venn diagram, you've got meditation. Meditation is a formal practice. That formal practice is focusing on some type of anchor. That anchor could be your breath. It could be a mantra. It could be a body scan. There's tons of different types of meditations. And then there is overlap between the two, and that's mindfulness meditation, where you are setting aside time to do a formal practice where you're focusing on the here and now, what it is you're experiencing physically, emotionally, in the here and now, again, without any judgment. And they both complement one another. So mindfulness is going to make you a better meditator, and meditation is going to make you more mindful, more present, more in the moment. They absolutely support one another. Well, over to you, Will.
No, you broke it down perfectly. I mean, there's a lot of different skills and tools that are within, mindfulness, and there's a lot of different, meditations. I think, why don't I'll just mention some of those now, like I have a little bit later, but yes, I mean, major, meditation, like we have just, the way we start our mindfulness or our meditation course is just getting to know your breath. It helps you to become more now oriented, right? So really, again, keeping it really simple. It's not like these things need to be complicated. It's not like, they're unattainable, or only attainable to, certain, human beings, right? They're attainable for all of us. And I really recommend, and why Jon and I are so passionate about it, is because we really feel that this is such a game changer for anybody that wants to practice and become more mindful and really get into more of that heart space and become less of a human doing and more of a human being. So breath and breath meditations are a great way to get down to that now orientation. You can just do a whole breathing practice for years, just getting to know your breath, which will be so incredibly beneficial to you. There's transcendental meditation that started years ago. It was something that you might have heard it. TM, the Beatles used to do it. There's a lot of famous people that do TM. I was actually trained in TM a long time ago. It is very beneficial, but maybe that's something that could be a step beyond, or one step down the path from just getting to know your breath and meditating with your breath. There's visualization meditations that can be a great way, to bring more things into your life and help to, abolish any kind of obstacles that might be getting in your way. The body scan meditation is, again, just getting to know your body and getting to know the impermanence of all things, which is, I cannot stress how incredibly important that is to your growing development and your growing mindfulness practices. And then there's like energetic practices like, letting go of things or forgiveness. There's self-compassion meditations. There's loving kindness meditations. And, so there's a lot of different ways to meditate. And I just think if you're looking at direction to meditate, start real simple. I don't get in, it can be really, you can get into with meditation, get into a trap. That one of the biggest traps and I'm seeing with some of the students that are going through the course right now, is you're expecting experiences or wanting experience. And that's the mind waking up again and getting in the way of what's actually going on in the here and now. So just getting really basic is a great way to just begin to achieve those levels of calm that will help to lend yourself not just to the here and now, but get you down into the self, get you down into that heart space, and help you to really see life in a very different way. So that's meditation there, Jon. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, the meditation, the breath, the body scan, the energetics, the self-compassion, a lot of it boils down to, like you said, not expecting anything, but also not doing anything. Like, that's a way to start. Exactly. To me, what I've found just recently, like within the last 2 years, when I sit in practice and I try to settle my mind immediately, I normally struggle. But if I just sit still and let all the thoughts that are going to come, let them come in the first 5 minutes, I normally am more successful, like just sitting still, settling my body first.
Yeah.
And then I do some breath work. That might be box breathing. It might be 4-7-8 breathing, which is box breathing. Again, I need to break this down. Box breathing is breathing in for a certain number of counts. So in this example, box breathing is breathing in for a count of 4. That's the first edge of the box. Holding for a count of 4, that's the top of the box. Breathing out for a count of 4, that's the other edge. And then holding for a count of 4, that's the bottom. And that's why they call it a box. And you do that, 4 or 5 times. That can help to settle your nervous system. You can do 4-7-8 breathing, which is breathing in for a count of 4, holding for a count of 7, and then breathing out forcefully for a count of 8. That also helps to settle the nervous system. And then once the nervous system is settled, then you can start to settle your mind. And that can be through that visualization, that body scan, the metta self-compassion meditations. But to me, I think it all starts with literally doing nothing. Because again, like we were talking about the human doing versus the human being, we rarely sit still. So I think that's a big piece of meditation. And then
that's what, let me just say, Jon. I completely agree. And what I really begin to describe, or one way that I kind of encourage people and market to people, like how meditation will help them, I'll ask them, like, do you want to get better at doing anything? They're like, oh yeah, I want to get better at this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, well, great. I was like, well, how much time do you take at getting good at doing nothing? And they're like confused. And I was like, if we're always in opposition, right? And there's no light without darkness. There's no sun without a moon. There's no up without a down, right? There's no right without a left. I was like, then there's doing and non-doing. So what if you get into the non-doing space, and then you think that would help you do things more effectively? And they're like, oh, that makes sense. And that's really what it is. I mean, just think of it, conceptualize. If you're like, oh, I can't meditate, or I think that's a bunch of bullshit. Well, then just put it in that paradigm. And then, maybe that'll help. be more likely to maybe do some meditation, because it really helps you to see, right? Because if I can just stop, and what you're really doing in meditation, and just a basic awareness meditation, you're just objectifying. You're just stepping back. You're not engaging. You're not attaching to the mind or to whatever else is coming up or the emotions. You're just being objective.
Right.
And then you can also come out of the meditation practice and just really see the world in a more objective way, which is so incredibly important, because you're no longer attaching to so many of the thoughts and the emotions that are available at every single circumstance, because your mind's just going to keep throwing them up. Hey, how about this? How about this? How about this? How about this? And it's your choice to attach to them or not.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And I want to come back to my Venn diagram example. May not have been perfect, as a matter of fact. Now thinking through it a little bit more, maybe mindfulness is the large circle.
Yes,
and meditation is actually a smaller circle within that. And so, that's just one of the mindfulness practices that is out there. Journaling would be another circle within that. Big mindfulness circle. Breath work. So there's a difference between breath work and meditation. You can do breath work as a mindfulness practice. For me, I like to have a mindful meal at least once a day. And what I mean by that is I'm not eating in my car. I'm not eating behind my computer screen. I'm not eating with my phone in my hand while I'm scrolling YouTube shorts. I am paying attention to the meal that's in front of me, or I'm paying attention to the people that are eating with me, right? Like my family. I don't have my phone on me while I'm at the table. I'm talking to my kids. I'm talking to my beautiful bride. That's a mindful meal. A mindful drive. Many of us drive to and from work the same time, the same way every single day. And there's times when you arrive at work and you realize, oh, I don't even know how I got here. I just kind of went through the motions, listened to the same, morning talk show.
Right.
And that in and of itself it's an intentional practice. And that kind of falls into the mindfulness circle of the Venn diagram.
Right.
What else would you say falls into that?
What I want to say also is Jon is like, I worked with Jon for a long time, know Jon long. He's a very busy man. He's like, we do the show, he's got a whole family. And so just to even take time to step back and maybe just have a little cup of tea for a minute or two and just really feel the warmth, smell a little bit, that brings you back into the here and now, get now oriented. Right. So it's just, you can use these little tools sometimes, and sometimes it's a longer practice, like a 20-minute meditation, but just touching, like, hey, here I am. Here's my breath, right? Here's the tea smells like. That's how delicious my food smells. Like those little moments bring you back. And that's really the key and one of the fundamental aspects of mindfulness, is getting back to the here and now.
Amen.
So more practices is like, honoring your body. Like this is super important. We're in a massive health crisis in this country. And one of the reasons that we're in this health crisis, and a lot of that is driven by feelings of depression, or I'm not enough and I'm never going to get ahead, is because we have an obesity problem in this country. It's almost 50%. 70% of the Americans are either overweight or obese, and that's an astronomical number in a society this large. And one of the reasons we don't do that is we're not moving and honoring our body what it needs, and it needs a certain amount of movement every single day. It also needs good hydration and good foods as well. But that's for another topic, another exercise. But just even moving your body, so whether that's walking, getting to the gym a certain amount of times a day, maybe you have a little morning routine or an afternoon routine or an evening routine, to just get in your body and remind yourself that you have a body, instead of you just being this bobblehead of thought and emotionally reactivity all the time. So that's another big one. And then and also we need to honor the fact that we're not just we are unique human beings, but we are tethered to a greater human connection. And we really can experience more of life and more of yourself, and maybe have reflected back to you maybe what's getting in the way, or what are the obstacles of you being more relaxed, by being around other people and just connecting with other people that you enjoy spending time with. So there's also that social interaction that I think needs to be honored. We need to be mindful of as well. We can't isolate ourselves, which a lot of men do.
For sure.
What is it? Yeah,
for sure.
So any other circles there in the Venn diagram?
Yeah, I'm nerding out on the Venn diagram. So for those of you who don't know me, I am a super nerd. And I'd like to say secretly, but it's really not so secret.
No. You have 2 math degrees, John.
Yeah, so I have my undergrad and my master's in math, essentially, and I'm just going to add another circle to this Venn diagram. So we've got all the smaller circles. So we've got meditation, you got journaling, you've got, the mindful meals, you got yoga. Those all kind of smaller circles that fit in the larger mindfulness circle. And then I would say one larger circle, even than that, is one that we talked about and we have to continue to talk about on this show, is just wellness in general. Like that's a huge umbrella circle that all these other things fall into. And that's one of the things that people ask us about all the time. There's like, what does that word even mean, right? Like, does that mean you go to see your doctor? Absolutely. Yeah. That's a part of it. Right. Eating well, that's a part of it. And I know we're going to unpack this a little further, but I've got this app, and I think I've talked about it before. It's called Humanity. And I'm going to bring it up to show you. So if you're watching the show, you'll be able to see it, but it gives this number through your day, and it tells you how well you are for that day. And it includes things that you're doing for movement, nutrition, mind, and recovery. So it includes your sleep. It's kind of like the Whoop. It's actually tied to the Whoop, which, we always sing the praises. But so right now it's telling me try 10 minutes of cleaning to increase your score, right? You get it's gamified wellness. But then over and above that, you go to another tab and says my aging. And it's basically epigenetics, right? It's tying your biological age, or rather, it compares your biological age to your chronological age. So I'm 47, turned 47 in August of this year, 2024, and it's showing that I am 47.8. So I'm actually 0.7 years older biologically, based on input that I put into this, based on my weight, based on my activity level. But just since I've had this app, I've decreased that. It was plus 2 years. So it's certainly not perfect, but it's a motivator. But the reason I'm bringing it up is not to sell this app, although if you want to get it, try it out. But it incorporates all these different types of wellness. It says cleaning, getting out and actively cleaning your house. That's, you're going to it's moving your body. But what else is that doing? Getting into a cleaner space. It helps you to sort your mind out. It does a 20-minute walk. It has, hot temperatures, hot showers, cold showers, time out in nature, time out in the sun. That, to me, those are key aspects, parts of mindfulness. But let's talk about that a little bit more. Of
wellness, right?
I'm sorry, of wellness. Yes, thanks for catching that.
Right.
Wellness, it is a very broad umbrella term for so much of what we do and what we talk about on this show. It's physical well-being, it's mental well-being, emotional, social, spiritual, nutritional, right? We talked about how your nutrition can affect your mental health. But there's so many different dimensions of that. Okay.
And then just honoring those. And sometimes you don't know, there's a lot of confusion out there of what is good health, what is good wellness. And and sometimes some people think, oh, well, I'm just going to take the next pill, right? And it'll solve my problem. And it's just I don't know if I'd go down. I would not suggest going down that path. I would first look at it hey, is my sleep in check? Just like you're talking about, John, right? Is my hydration in check? Am I eating whole, nutritious foods? Am I staying hydrated? How much activity am I putting in my body every day? And activity meaning you must put a certain amount of strain and stress on your body to gain overall health. Because think about this, John. If we stimulate the body enough, I was watching a video the other day. It's okay, the women that want to increase their bone density, and we increase our bone density, we get all these hormones that are released into the bloodstream, right? It actually ups our immune system because our immunity comes from our bone marrow, and it just has, and actually literally increases the bone density. So we actually physically, from the skeletal part of it, get stronger. was watching this video, and they suggest women start at like, so they don't fall prey to osteoporosis or other problems that come with like long bouts or extended time of inactivity. Is like just doing box jumps, like jumping up on a box and jumping back down, because that really obviously, has a lot of physical impact on the body. And it's done it's done in a moderate way. It's not like you're doing box jumps for freaking 3 hours and hurting your
you
joints.
Don't have to do you don't have to do the 36-inch box jumps or the 48-inch. Just
like a
small
2 foot or something like that.
Even
something small.
Yeah, probably even smaller than that for older.
Yeah, exactly. So it's and another part. So just knowing basic health. And there's a you can listen to so much of our show. We had food and mood on our show a long time ago. We had hydration. We've had Dr. T on talking about physical exercise and the importance of physical exercise, even just little movements throughout the day. And really wellness, all the things we're talking about comes down to it's preventative, right? We're really preventing ourselves from becoming emotionally unhealthy, becoming physically unhealthy, becoming one thing we didn't say is also that social wellness, right? Like getting around, being around other people, like getting those hugs, right? Getting that interaction, getting a little touch, like it's important. Like it really, really is important. And
that's what I tell
it's really up to you.
I tell my eldest daughter all the time. I'm like, hey, every morning I'm like, hey, you know what I need? And she's like, a 17-second hug. Because it's apparently it's been shown that that's the magic numbers when you start releasing all the good hormones. But I like what you mentioned there about it being preventative, right?
Right.
It's being proactive. It's not waiting until you're injured or you're sick to take care of yourself. And when I say sick, I mean physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever that could look like. But it's being proactive and getting what we used to call in the military is you get left of bang. And what that means is like, hey, what can you do to prevent a war before that first bang? So what can you do to prevent that war? Well, what can you do to prevent that war in your body? And I think it really comes down, a lot of it comes down to the difference between distress and eustress. And if you're not familiar with that term, eustress, that's a positive form of stress. And that positive form of stress, it unlike distress, which is definitely harmful and overwhelming, eustress, and that's spelled, I'm going to screw this up, EU stress, EUSTRESS.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's beneficial and it comes up when a person is challenging themselves. Like you said, you have to go out and challenge your body every day, right? That's a form of eustress. And what that does for you, that eustress, one, it comes out in like exciting, engaging, fulfilling things, kind of like whatever you would do that would get you into that state of flow, right? Well, what does it do for you is it helps to increase your motivation. It increases your growth, right? Because you're pushing yourself, you're stressing yourself in a good way, you're challenging yourself. And then I think it gives you a sense of control, or at least perceived control, because you are putting the stress on yourself. It's not stress that's coming on you from outside world. It's you putting it on. So what are some of the examples of that? You've already mentioned exercise. I like public speaking, which is funny because I never thought that I would, but I like that little form of nervousness before I get up on stage. Planning a vacation, right? I've got a vacation coming up in November. My family's going Hawaii, and then in the spring, my eldest daughter and I are going to Australia. And putting that on the calendar, it's stressful, but I'm like, hell yeah, that's something that I'm looking forward to, right?
Awesome.
What were you talking about before, where somebody's wanting to learn a new skill, right? Like you and I both, funny enough, it took us a while to learn this, but we both played the trombone. And man, awful. I tell you, I wish I could learn it again. But when I first learned the trombone, that was a great thing for me. It was eustress. I was putting that on myself, learning that new instrument, learning a new hobby, learning a new challenge, language. That's what I think is the difference between stress that is harmful to you and wellness. Wellness is a form of intentionally applying some level of eustress, or that's a part of it. Coming back to Venn diagrams, but I won't nerd out anymore. But that's I think that's a key piece.
I'll sum up wellness with this. Like, if you're out there struggling with stress or anxiety, right? Well, they did a study a long time ago, and they said, or this is in the UK back in 2012, that 70% of all hospital visits are stress related.
Mm-hmm.
So think about that. Like, so it literally, stress and the hormones that are associated with it, really they downgrade and denigrate our physical and mental self. And it can do, and over time, over long periods of time, or depending on the level of stress that you're experiencing, it can literally put you in a hospital.
Yeah.
It can literally, I mean, there's, I don't know what the link is, but I'm sure they've shown link between anxiety, stress, and like heart attacks and cancer and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There are. I don't know what they are, but I know they're out there because that's what stress can do to you over an extended period of time. So why wait? Why wait to wake up, right? When you're in the hospital or have your first heart attack, when you can literally start right now, right, and alleviate some of that stress, and you can literally begin to create more longevity and increase your overall health dramatically. So let's switch over to Jon.
Real quick, man. I just want to kind of give a little bit of data on that. So while you were talking, I just typed into ChatGPT, what are the scientific studies done on stress and wellness. And chronic stress can lead to cardiovascular sickness because of the cortisol and inflammation. Long-term stress leads to elevated levels of cortisol, a hormone that can increase inflammation and contributes to plaque buildup in the arteries, which can lead to heart disease. Blood pressure. Chronic stress has been linked to elevated blood pressure, heart rate variability, which stress can reduce. Then another big one is acute stress and heart attack. You can have broken heart syndrome, which is a real thing. As you have stress throughout it, it's an acute emotional or physical stress can cause temporary condition where the heart's main pumping chamber weakens, mimicking a heart attack. And this is often referred to as stress-induced cardiomyopathy. Stress and unhealthy behaviors. So you become more likely to do some risky things that are not good for you, eating emotionally and obesity, work-related stress, depression, anxiety, and the list goes on, man. I'm scrolling. Yeah, and then there's multiple studies, like thousands.
So there's a direct link. Yeah. There's a direct fucking link, and this is a great way to detach from that catastrophe that Jon's talking about, You want to waste your time, you want to use your time right now, be responsible of your time right now and become more mindful, get to know your breath, begin to practice, begin to calm down, alleviate that stress and anxiety, then do it. Or do you want to take your time 4 or 5 years from now where you can't work, right? You can't walk, or you have some sort of a time frame that you got to work months and months and months to get back to just a basic baseline of health that you can actually function on your own. Like, so the choice is yours, right? Again, keyword here is this is preventative, and take, and that little bit of time investment, that little bit of money investment can save you a hell of a lot of heartache, a hell of a lot of physical pain in the future, and a hell of a lot of wasted time because you're not using your time right now in order to step up and take this opportunity to like shift what's going on the inside.
Yeah. So what's keeping us from stepping up and taking that opportunity, right?
Resistance,
right? The war of art. And it's funny, man. I feel bad because I recommended the war of art the other day, a couple weeks back. And, and I said, it's Steven Pressfield. And the guy picked up The Art of War, also a fantastic read, but The Art of War is Sun Tzu. Two very, very different reads. So the War of Art in that book that Will's holding up, it's Steven Pressfield. He talks about resistance and then becoming going pro in the book.
Going Pro is the second book. Going Pro is the second book. Great book.
Yeah, but Going Pro is defined in the War of Art.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah.
So, but basically resistance is, we use excuses like, I don't have time. We get wrapped up in our work. We get wrapped in our ego. What feeds our ego? Well, we get recognized for the amount of work that we have in a day. We feed our ego by looking at our calendar and being like, oh my gosh, I have 50 meetings today. I am such a great person.
Right.
I'm so important. But what could you do if you allowed yourself time to get up and go move your body like we talked about? What are some other examples of the resistance?
Well, I mean, he talks. There's many. It's like he talks about many different forms. It's going to show up. So whether it's victimhood or whether you're self-medicating or there's drama or your resistance with trauma or sex, like there's so many things that are always, the mind is always going to present you with something to go to one of two places. All the mind knows, right, is well, two things. It knows the past or the future, but what it's always seeking is more, and it's more of what it loves or more of what it knows. That's it. So if you want to stay in the mind and get drug around by the mental thoughts and the emotions that arise with them, then the resistance is going to be a part of that. And the resistance is always going to be there, and it's going to show up time and time and time again, especially when you try to do something new. But that's what being calm and getting to calm and getting more mindful is going to help you to do, because then it's like, wait, I've been down that path before. Do I want to go down that path again? What are the results of when I typically go down that path, right? And do I want those results in this moment right now? Or I can be like, hey, all right, don't want to go there. What's the next step I can, what's the step I can take over here in order to change? And as soon as you start to make change, the mind's going to be like, you're not serving the mind right now, right? More of what I love and more of what I know. And it'll try to put some sort of roadblock, which Stephen Pressfield talks to as, which he refers to as resistance. And it's interesting because he defines resistance not just as an idea, but an actual identity. And I like that he says like an actual entity. That's it, more of the word, more of an entity that is within all of us and around us all the time. And he very succinctly and so beautifully writes, he goes, resistance is a universal force that acts against human creativity and endeavors. It's described as a faceless, formless, and heartless energy whose sole purpose is to prevent individuals from starting and completing their creative work. Resistance manifests in various forms such as rationalizing, fear, anxiety, procrastination, self-doubt, and even sabotage by others. It is an internal sensation. Think about that. It's an internal sensation that is more powerful than any external obstacle and is particularly potent when individuals attempt to pursue work that is important to their soul's evolution. Wow. Right?
Mind-blowing, yeah.
That is... I know, really mind-blowing. And he really hits on so many levels. And really, that's kind of, I love those last two words, is what all this mindfulness and everything we're talking about, wellness, is the soul's evolution, right? Really upgrading that operating system, upgrading that software, because we can try to deny our energetic soul self that we are, right? But that's who we are. And that's who we're, if you really want to, that's who we're trying to get to a little bit more every single day.
And why are we talking about this here? Where he talks about completing their creative work. Resistance prevents individuals from starting and completing their creative work. Well, in one way, you are your own creative work, right? Taking care of yourself, taking care of your body, your mind. You create yourself in a way, right? Obviously, I'm not going to get into the religious side of what created us and put us on. But what can we do? What do we have in our power to further refine who we are, what we are? And that's the creative work that we're referring to. Is it taking care of your wellness, practicing wellness, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever that is, a creative work. So that's why we're bringing it up, because that same stuff, all that same stuff that Will read about, that Stephen Pressfield writes about, it keeps us from practicing wellness. It can be the rationalizing, the fear, the anxiety, the procrastination, self-doubt, and even sabotage by others. And that sabotage by others, it's not necessarily the enemy. It could be our friend being like, "Hey man, don't worry about hitting the gym. Let's go get effed up." Right? Let's go drink. Let's go drink. Let's go eat a gallon of ice cream.
Whatever it is, right?
Or I mean, it could even be your family, right? And and they won't intentionally be sabotaging you, but right, I've got kids, and I will find they don't eat the food on their plate. So what do? I eat the food. that's
right.
I would like to say that's them sabotaging me, but in actuality, it's myself. I'm sabotaging myself, and I'm blaming it on others. And that's another thing, is we blame others when it's not their fault.
Very true.
So anyhow, So where else you want to go here, man?
Well, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence in a second, but I love what you brought up there, Jon, about, you're your own artist. You're the own creator of your experience. Da Vinci, when he was chiseling out David, right? The statue David, he's like, someone asked him, like, how did you do that? He's like, oh, David was always in the stone. I just chipped away the excess. And you, as your own artist, needs to chip away all the excess, all the things that gets in the way from the brilliant, right, self that you are, right, deep inside of you. But it takes work. It takes these kind of practices. So where are you going to start? But I think, let's just close with this, Jon. So all of this, everything we're kind of talking about here, and what really drives the human experience is our emotion. So what we need to be very aware of and become more aware of, and work to become continually more aware of and more literate in this realm, is our emotional intelligence. So where do you want to start with that, Jon? I think this is the key to all of it.
I think a lot of the time people, when they think about emotional intelligence, they think about, well, how do I relate to others at work or in my family? But there's really a piece of emotional intelligence that just ties to understanding where you are emotionally. And I think that's a critical piece of it. When we tie it to wellness, you have to be, and again, doing this without judgment, which is mindfulness, right? But where am I emotionally? Am I doing okay? Am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling depressed? And I say specifically feeling there, because those are emotions, not identities. I don't want to say I am stressed, I am depressed. You said that, or that I am am a stressed person, or I am a depressed person. You're feeling that, and that's an emotion, and that's perfectly human. And being aware of the difference there, I think that's a huge piece of emotional intelligence that ties into wellness. But what else does emotional wellness do for us, and how else do we express it? There's the improved relationships, certainly, that we have, more empathy, compassion, right? And that's at work, that's with your family. Again, it's also with yourself. You have a better relationship with yourself. Better stress and emotional management is a big piece of it. What else, man?
Just even becoming more aware of, again, those feelings. Think about when you're angry or when you're really frustrated with something. How do you act? Like when you are, well, that's what you just said. It's like, I am frustrated. When you identify with your frustration, right? You act in a frustrated way. So I know when I'm frustrated, I'm very short with people. I'm trying to control the situation. Maybe even trying to like put other people down so I can get out of this frustrating circumstance. So when we name it to tame it is a super key concept here, right? We create more clarity by calming down, right? By finding our breath, being a better meditator, practicing on a regular basis. So I really get to now oriented instead of mind orientation. And therefore, once that clarity comes online, then I can really gain that broader perspective. So I can see when my emotion comes up, I'm like, whoa, that's frustration. And I can name it. So like, I don't want to go there. So I'm taming frustration. Like, no. I like that. I'm not going to go down a frustration route. So therefore, this all leads to enhanced decision-making, because here I am, right, being responsible of my emotions, not attaching to them, and making a choice that aligns with what's needed in that particular circumstance or the intention that I've been trying to exercise in this particular moment. So that's huge. And is an increased resilience as well. So instead of you, again, being a slave to the amygdala hijack, which drives you into that emotional experience, which gives you those emotional results, which usually, are usually regretting or backpedaling or apologizing for, I can just be with my emotions. I can let frustration and overwhelm and stress kind of move through me. We had Sam Calbert on the show recently. He talked about the 90-second rule. We have basically most emotions, they linger in our consciousness and our being energetically and in our mind for 90 seconds. So you just got to kind of wait it out. Take some breaths, step away, take a little walk, just to kind of let go of that. And that's going to really help you to become more resilient. So you become a better decision maker, and improve any relationship, especially to yourself. And this has been shown, right? This emotional intelligence is going to create more job satisfaction and performance, right? IQ gets you hired. EQ is what gets you promoted, because I know that I only want to work with people like Jon. He's a good dude. He's emotionally responsible. He's not like, blaming me for shit all the time that I didn't even do. Like he's really just
not out loud anyway. Dude.
Yeah, right. I know. I never hear it, so I don't want to hear it anyway, Jon. Because I'm fucking perfect. I'm perfect, dude.
Let's go back to our narcissism episode.
I know, right? I just kidding. So, so that just think how that's going to translate, not just even at work, but how about in your closest relationships when you become more emotionally intelligent. My relationships have improved dramatically with all of my loved ones because I make sure I do the best I can to stay calm, or if I'm not calm, I don't open my mouth, or I don't take an action when I'm feeling like, oh my God, I want to, strangle someone right now. So anything
that's the STIA process. Yeah. In action, right? Stimulus, thought, emotion, action. And I think that is a nice way to end the conversation, is that it all comes down to stimulus, thought, emotion, action. As far as the emotional intelligence piece. But what are we talking about today? Wellness. Wellness includes all of this. It includes mindfulness. It includes meditation. It includes going to the doctor. It includes eating right. It includes, getting out and moving, getting into some sunlight, getting into some nature, hydrating. You can really sit down all day and talk about wellness. And that's what we're trying to break down here. Back to the basics, unpacking wellness. Emotional intelligence is a key aspect to that.
So. Yeah. It starts 5 minutes, guys. It starts at 5. Anyone's listening, pick one thing, all we mentioned today, and just do one thing that really speaks to you on a soul level, on a heart level, and just start exercising that for 5 minutes every day. And just watch. Again, it's like this ripple effect, and it just keeps rolling. The next thing you know, it's like, oh, I'm going to take a meditation class that Men Talking Mindfulness is offering, or I'm going to, or I'm going to do something else that really speaks to me and helps me to release the stress, gain that clarity, and step forward and be more emotionally responsible instead of emotionally reactive and messing everything up.
There you go.
Awesome, Jon. Cool. One breath practice to close.
Let's do one breath practice and done. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's just do 3 breaths, everybody. We'll do 3 breaths so you can feel a little bit more of that breath. And this just could be a great place to start. Just doing 3 breaths like this every hour or something like that. But exhale the breath all the way out. What's important here is really with breathing practice, really try to take a deep breath. So maybe bring a hand onto your navel and take a big breath into your hand. So you feel that expansion down in the navel all the way to the front, the back, the sides, then to the top. And exhale, let the breath go out slowly and mindfully through the mouth, pushing the breath out gently, creating a nice, cool kind of wave and breeze. And again, inhale, big breath. And let it go. And you can feel things change when you begin to breathe in this way. And one more time, inhale. Let it go out, out, out. And maybe you pause the recording now and just do several more of these and just really feel more of that experience. But we're going to pop out, and I'm just going to say thank you, Jon. Thank everybody for listening. I hope this was very helpful. Share this with anybody that's just like, oh, all this mindfulness is just tree hugging hippie bullshit. All right, it's not. It's not. It really makes a big difference. This is how people describe, or I know they're kind of picking on me a little bit, but this is how people describe this to me. I'm like, well. How's that going?
Yeah, right. All right. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate y'all. And until next time, take care. Peace.
Peace, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.